That was like a video game. They just shooting so easy to the people.
He is the man behind the viral video seen around the world.
Hello, my name is Ali, and this is my Iranian ID. I'm speaking to you from inside Iran.
Ali Rezaei Majd, a first-hand witness to the January massacre, recounts what he saw and how he managed to escape, and the message he now wants the world to hear.
We cannot make deal with them. Dealing with them means leaving this cancer to continue its work on this body. And we, all the people of the world, must stop them.
But first, Iran fires a ballistic missile toward Diego Garcia. What does that signal about Tehran's capabilities and the risks ahead? We break it down with experts Farzin Nadimi, a defense and military Iran expert from the Washington Institute, and Janatan Sayeh, an Iran expert with the FDD.
This should not come as a surprise because Iranian missiles and drones were already on the European continent being launched by Russia. Now, the difference is the malign regime itself can actually launch them from Iranian territory.
Iran has long been suspected to have long-range missile capabilities and ability to increase the range of its ballistic missiles.
And finally, the United Arab Emirates ambassador to the United States warns a simple ceasefire is not enough, and that Iran's regime remains a threat to global and economic security. We're joined by Joel Rubin, a former State Department official, and Dr. Walid Phares, an advisor to past U.S. presidents.
Which tells me that ground forces, limited special forces, Marines, now we understand, may be used in that circumstance.
They need to remember why we're in the position we're in now, which is that this is how Iran behaves. This is what they're doing. They're willing to disrupt and destroy the global economy to save their own nuclear program and their own skin.
I'm Negar Moshahedi, and this is Eye for Iran. Let's now turn to the battlefield and what we're learning about Iran's capabilities. We're now seeing reports of a strike toward Diego Garcia and talk of what may come next, including the possibility of targeting Kharg Island. Joining me now is Farzin Nadimi. He's a defense and security expert at the Washington Institute, and Janatan Sayeh. He is an Iran expert at the FDD. Thank you so much to you both. Farzin, let's start with you. Iran has long claimed that its missile range was 2,000 kilometers, but what we're seeing now suggests a very different picture, potentially double that. What does this moment reveal about Iran's capabilities, and what still remains of its arsenal?
Hi, and thank you very much for having me. Iran has long been suspected to have long-range missile capabilities and ability to increase the range of its ballistic missiles. In fact, I have been writing about this for years, that Iran has the technical ability to increase the range of its missiles. And the first target that would come into mind would be, in fact, DiegoGarcia, the strategic air and naval base in the middle of the Indian Ocean, which the United States had used in the past for operations in the Middle East, and would be expected to be extensively used against any military operation against Iran. And it sits at about 4,000 kilometers from the Iranian coastline. It would be one of the few military bases beside aircraft carriers that the United States would not need permission of the host country to use them, with the exception of Britain, which we know that these days, for a period of time, prevented use of this base from the United States. But at the time, in the past few years, the Americans have been using this base extensively, and I had assumed, and I think correctly now, that the IRGC would want a missile with a range sufficient to reach Diego Garcia, and we have been seeing this episode where a missile with a trajectory sufficient to reach Diego Garcia was used. Whether that was a test launch or actually they hoped that these missiles would reach Diego Garcia, that's another question. But the capability obviously was there. It could be either a modified Khorramshahr for a ballistic missile with a smaller warhead and increased fuel, or it would be a converted Qasid or Qa'em satellite launch vehicle that IRGC has developed to launch satellites into orbit, and they can also be easily converted to be used as an IRB.
Wow. So, Jonathan, from a security standpoint, make this real for us. What does this mean for the security of Europe? Like, could this reach the United Kingdom, for example? How far can it
It is
go?
it's a certain national security issue, not just for particular countries, but for NATO as a whole. We've seen Iran launch attacks against Turkey, and now we know the range can reach all the way to London. But really, I think looking at it from a political angle, the issue goes back to Tehran's doublespeak. On one hand, they do suggest that their missile ranges were limited at 2,000 kilometers, but at the same time, they would signal that that's a self-imposed cap. And you see the same rhetoric in regarding their nuclear capabilities as well. They say currently nuclear weapons are not permissible based on Islamic law, but that could change. So this form of not being fully honest or transparent on a public domain and diplomatically speaking really has hindered the world's ability to meaningfully engage the Islamic Republic diplomatically because there's no certainty or there's no really, their word does not carry any weight anymore. So when we want to neutralize some of these threats, diplomacy cannot work evidently because they either deceive or they misrepresent their capabilities, but more importantly, their intent.
So, this is a wake up call.
It certainly is for everyone. I think the idea that many of these European countries were relying on the rhetoric coming from the Islamic Republic in itself spoke volumes that for some reason we're taking this regime's word for it. But I think now increasingly more and more the world is realizing that one, you cannot take their word for it, and two, despite what the regime might signal to you, and that applies to the regional countries as well. I'm thinking of Ankara that actually tried to broker a deal between Tehran and Washington that is a Muslim Brotherhood-backed state and is part of NATO at the same time, thought is going to be spared from Iranian aggression, and that's not the case. Same thing is going to be applicable in Europe. And last thing I'll say about that is this should not come as a surprise because Iranian missiles and drones were already on the European continent being launched by Russia. Now, the difference is the malign regime itself can actually launch them from Iranian territory. So you look at it throughout, the threat was real. So when the president, during the State of the Union, highlighted these threats about how Tehran's missiles can actually reach the United States, at this point, it is no longer just an abstract notion. We see it in full display.
Yeah, and you're right. The Iranian regime spares no one. Farzin, a question that I get asked often is, with the 12-day war, with Operation Epic Fury, and the direct attacks and targets of Iran's missile stockpile, how much do they actually have? And why does it seem like it's never ending here? Are they getting things from Russia? What's going on here?
Well, for years, the IRGC and the regime's military-industrial complex had invested a lot of money in the ballistic missile program and expanded into one of the pillars of their deterrence, and both their deterrence and also their offensive power. Well, I can argue that the ballistic missile program in Iran has always served an offensive purpose. Even during the Iran-Iraq war, they started to obtain these missiles from Libya and then start their own missile development projects when they actually were inside Iraqi territory, and they were thinking about ways of winning or winning the war and dismantling Saddam Hussein's regime and then going further. And they started their medium-range ballistic missiles. They started to import the Nodong missile technology from North Korea and develop their Shahab-3 missiles. That was the first missile that could reach Israel. In fact, when they cemented their ideological and military objectives, and they converged them into a grand strategy of destroying Israel and ejecting the United States from the region using both ballistic missiles and ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads, and also their proxies. The 360-degree threat doctrine that they put in place around Israel. So these missiles served an offensive purpose more than they served a defensive purpose, and they developed these industries across the country, and then they started to build up these missile bases, mostly almost all of them underground, in very hardened under
Okay.
mountains, and they are very, really hard to reach. At least 30 of them, and with regard to numbers, there
Under the
are various
mountains.
estimates. Various estimates about
Wow.
between 3,000 and before the
3,000.
12-day war, and some of them were used up or destroyed during the 12-day war. But again, they managed to produce more missiles since then.
Yeah.
It seems that it whatever number they have, I believe they all still have about whether we can say 2,500 or whatever. They still, before the start of this war, I think they still have about 40% of their missiles remaining, but it doesn't mean that they have access to all of them, because many of these tunnels have been bombed and at least temporarily unaccessible to launchers outside. Well, we have to wait, see that this campaign, how it develops, how it further affects the number of missiles they can launch on a daily basis. But so far, they have been able to launch at least the 20 to 30 missiles per day.
And when you talk about these underground networks of these missiles, where they're being stored, rather, and the bombardments, how deep underground are they? And can it be completely obliterated with an air campaign?
No, they can't. Many of them are so deep that even with the most effective and most powerful bunker buster bombs, they cannot be reached. And so some of them are as deep as 500 meters. Which even with nuclear weapons, or you can have doubts that they can destroy the entire facility. They are really very large. Some of them, in fact, are the size of a small city, and
Wow.
well, they are built in very hardened granite. Under granite rock formations, and the only hope that can be there to destroy or disable these bases is to affect their entrances, because they have to take these transporter launchers out in order to launch them, and the persistence ISR intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance overhead could launch missiles or call in airstrikes as soon as these missiles are come out and get and prepare for launch. But we know that some of these solid propellant missiles can very quickly be prepared and launched, and therefore there are very short window of time available to find them and destroy them.
Wow. So, like you said, the size of cities, small cities, that's very alarming. Janatan, what's running through your mind when you hear something like that?
I think the major concerning factor when we talk about some of these missile cities is actually where they're located. One example is in the province of Yazd. They deliberately established this underground network under what is a civilian leisure facility, like this recreational park that's meant to bring in families and just different civilians for just fun and just enjoyment. Whereas underneath it, you have a missile city. And I think points to a greater issue of how they're increasingly leveraging civilian infrastructure for their military capabilities. CENTCOM and IDF both have stated that Iran is actually positioning a lot of these launchers in residential areas for one-way attacks, so they can maybe create a rally around the flag effect by portraying themselves as the victims and, portraying the United States as the aggressor against Iranian civilians, which could not be further from the truth, because we see Iranians on the ground corroborating these stories. They send photos and videos of these launchers being stored in a densely populated part of Tehran, or we see their forces sheltering inside schools, which is very prevalent. Now they're increasingly hiding inside tunnels and different infrastructure. So I think the more this campaign takes out the military infrastructure, these forces still remain. If you look at the numbers, I think CENTCOM said they've taken out about 10,000 targets, whereas Israelis are right under the 5,000 mark. So you compare that with how many personnel have died. Iran's armed forces are estimated to be about 500,000. And let's say even it's half of that. Let's say it's even 250,000, which is probably more than that. And you look at how many have been reported dead so far, generously, maybe 10,000. So you still have hundreds of thousands of these forces that have nowhere to go, which is why they're embedding themselves in residential areas and civilian neighborhoods, trying to inflict political cost on their adversary by using Iranians as a shield.
It's deplorable. Farzin, what more do you know about what Janatan is telling us about these underground missile cities that are being built in, you know, like Jonathan mentioned, areas that are meant for young children and families?
Well, in with regard to Yazd, right, Yazd is not only a missile base, but it's also a missile factory. And it's one of those underground hardened missile factories that produces missiles, and even though it was subjected to a very concerted aerial campaign in the past few days, we can still assume that, given the opportunity, it will produce more missiles to help the IRGC continue its missile campaign at a slower rate, but still persistent. Other missile bases, like in Kermanshah or in Tehran, they are alarmingly close to civilian areas and residential areas, and this is very dangerous. And also the missile factories, more in general, the military industrial complex in cities like Shiraz, in Isfahan, and in Tehran are again very alarmingly close to urban areas. In Sharak Hakimiyya, for example, is a main hub was probably for producing these missile launchers or components for Iran's missile factories, missile program, or in Parchin, or in other areas in the east or northeast Tehran. They are almost neighbors with residential areas, and we have seen in the videos that people produce that how close those explosions are. That a very dangerous and risky situation. And also, when they want to use these missiles, especially those missiles that are cruise missiles, anti-ship versions, and they are launched from trucks that are very similar to civilian trucks for camouflage deception purposes, but in fact, they put similar civilian trucks in dangers because an aerial campaign that targets these missile transporter launcher trucks that are very similar to civilian vehicles, they can also target them. We don't know if how many civilian trucks have been targeted in this very campaign because the missile launchers are similar to them.
Wow. I just wanted to move our attention and end on Kharg Island. There's talk that potentially we might see boots on the ground or some sort of strikes on the island, which many analysts refer to as an economic lifeline for the regime. 90% of Iran's crude oil passes through there. Jonathan, just how important is Kharg Island for the regime's survival? I mean, if the Americans temporarily occupy the island, could that lead to the downfall of the regime, meaning that it would be a turning point and really cut them off from funds?
It's hard to speculate because it comes down to how it's played out. Of course, as you pointed out, Khark is of crucial importance economically and strategically to the Islamic Republic, and that's part of the way that they're actually being able to, I guess. Block the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, it's not just only conducted through Khark. Iran has a great coastline by the Persian Gulf, hence the name, of course. But that said, if the issue there is to open up the strait, or for whatever reason, if we want to inflict more economic costs against the Islamic Republic using the military force, we have to discuss numbers first. So in this particular case, I think the numbers may be about 1,000 to 3,000 U.S. personnel that would be deployed. Now, you have to compare that to similar campaigns in the region. For example, with Iraq, the numbers were in the hundreds of thousands. So this tells us that should there be one, it cannot be long-term because there's not enough personnel, frankly. But more importantly, I know we discussed missiles in great depth, but the other issue has been the drones. because
Yeah.
drones, unlike missiles, do not need a launch pad. They could be really operated much easier. They're cheaper. Iran certainly has more of them. So if you look at the barrages and the attacks that Iran has been carrying out, especially in the last few days, the drones outnumber the missiles it's been using because they've been so effective. So should there be U.S. personnel in that area, they would be prone to Iranian drone attacks. That in itself would be quite challenging. Another angle that some are discussing of U.S. forces was somehow to actually extract and remove the enriched uranium from inside Iran, but that is not going to be close to Kharg Island. That's going to be in the center. It's going to have its own challenges. So I do think when we're discussing the strategy, it's really important to keep in mind what the long-term plan is as we're deploying U.S. forces. Is it just to inflict more political cost? Is it a start of a greater campaign? And the latter is starting to look more likely because Trump clearly said there's a deadline for Tehran and Washington to come to some sort of an agreement. And should that not materialize, the only option that Washington has is escalation, because the Strait of Hormuz issue is going to be a major political, going to have major political implications for the Trump administration. Midterms are coming up. It's impacting the economy. So because of that, the action needs to be decisive.
And Farzin, 4 weeks or nearly 4 weeks into this war, what is Iran still capable of, militarily speaking? And like Janatan mentioned, could they be capable of then a drone attack on U.S. soil, not necessarily on U.S. forces on the ground in Iran, but on U.S. soil itself?
Well, let me add a caveat to some numbers with regard to Iranian personnel first. And when we talk about a large number of Iranian ground forces, we have to consider the fact that a majority of these forces are conscript soldiers. They're not cadre. They are not professionally trained. I have served in Iranian Artesh as a conscript soldier. I know that how ineffective and ill-trained they are, and if they are put into service, actual combat, I think many of those conscripts would defect. To be frank, or wouldn't be very effective in a high intensity conflict. But with regard to use of drones and continuing use of drones and missiles by Iran, well, I think that has been part of the plan. The IRGC and Iranian regime in general, they have been planning for such a military campaign for years. And they not only they created the industrial infrastructure, the basing, hardened facilities, they also dispersed and they have very good dispersal methods, especially after the 12-day war. They noticed that these hardened bases have a vulnerability, and that those are the finite number of the tunnel entrances, and they could be bombed. Well, they could reopen those entrances, but it would take about 48 hours. And 48 hours is a lot of time in a high intensity war. And therefore, they disperse some of those launchers and missile stockpiles outside of those hardened bases into the open, in urban areas, in other and probably industrial sites. And so far, they have been pretty successful in maintaining a launching rate of about 20 to 30, and probably some more at some particular days. And I can expect that they will continue to fire that number of missiles for a conceivable period of time in the future. Drones, as Janatan said, they are smaller. They have a smaller launcher footprints, and they can easily transport them on pickup trucks and launch them. And they have a very large number of them, and they still have the ability to import components for drones from China and Russia, in fact, and continue to launch the drones. Larger ones, like Shahed 136 with the 50-kilogram warheads against targets across the Persian Gulf, or they can also use these small FPV quadcopters if there is going to be ground war, and they could pose a significant threat against any U.S. land forces, very similar to how the Russians are subjected to Ukrainian drones.
And what about just regular, everyday civilian Americans in the U.S., though?
I think except very limited use of drones by his sleeper cell in the U.S. Some Iranian sympathizers who has lived in this country and might have access to drones and add some explosives, make some makeshift drone bombs. I think that could be a possibility, but other than that, I don't see any significant or systematic threat from Iranian drones or missiles
Thank you
against the
so much.
mainland.
Thank you for clarifying that. I was just curious after the FBI put out that warning for the state of California. I believe it was about a week ago. Thank you so much to both our guests for joining us today. For your expert, your insight, and of course your time. It's very much appreciated. Joining me now is Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and Dr. Walid Phares, foreign policy expert and a former advisor to many U.S. presidents. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Joel, let me start with you. One thing that really stood out to me is the UAE ambassador to the United States wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, I'm sure you've both read it, saying this war has confirmed what many in the region have believed and have said for nearly 50 years now, that Iran's revolution is not just a regional threat, but a global threat. And he goes further, saying a simple ceasefire is not enough, that we have to deal with, have a conclusive outcome that addresses all the issues when it comes to the Iranian regime. And then this happened, that the UAE is ready to join an international effort to reopen and secure the Strait of Hormuz. You've worked inside the State Department. How significant is it to see a regional player say this and to be so clear and so public about it?
Well, Negar, it's great to be with you and with Dr. Phares. And in the State Department, when there are questions about the Strait of Hormuz and Gulf security, this is something that the United States, we've always taken as our responsibility for decades now. And clearly, because of the war, we're seeing extraordinary efforts to try to shut it down by Iran. And I think that we would look at this and say, thank goodness we have regional allies who are now willing to step in and willing to support. This has been a bit of a backwards diplomacy in a way. I'm not going to fault the administration for it, but the law of war is that there are unintended outcomes and unintended consequences. And the shutdown, to the extent that it's been executed by Iran, has, I think, exceeded what anyone would have predicted. And so now here we are in the region, which is directly affected by it, does need to be involved. The question of how to do it operationally, of course, is a very complex one, but it matters. And I think it's very valuable that we also see in the public sphere the argument that this is essentially what we have always been concerned about. And this idea that for now nearly 5 decades, Iran's behavior has been problematic, to put it diplomatically, that is an important point to remind audiences of, because people get focused on the day-to-day. They need to remember why we're in the position we're in now, which is that this is how Iran behaves. This is what they're doing. They're willing to disrupt and destroy the global economy to save their own nuclear program and their own skin. And I think that's a message that has to be countered extensively.
And Dr. Phares, when a country like the UAE, which historically has had ties with the Iranian regime, and in fact the Iranian regime has invested in that country in terms of creating networks for sanctions evasion, when they say something like this, are you seeing a shift in the region, and does it signal that we're moving towards a more broader coalition, maybe with the United States and Israel, against the Islamic Republic?
Well, on the nature of the UAE, I've had many visits there, engaged with policymakers, leaders, intellectuals, analysts. The UAE, by the way, has been the first Arab country to have the longest list of terrorist organizations, starting with the jihadists, all of them. That was in 2014. And it surprised me at the time because I was publishing in that direction. And here comes a country in the Middle East which has a very advanced and sophisticated perception of these forces, but not just the jihadi Sunni Salafi. Very strangely, it had all at the time designated Hezbollah, the early Houthi wave, because it was not yet there, of course, in other organizations and the IRGC and the Basij. Though that regime, the Islamic regime in Iran, has invested as a regime, as a government in the UAE, and many rich people in the regime or around the regime have also deposited their money in the banks of the UAE. So that is very serious when they know that they have the money of of the regime, and on the other hand, they are designating many of its entities, by the way, which also have invested in the UAE. So that tells me that the UAE has been constant, then followed by Saudi, by Bahrain, Kuwait to a certain point, and on the Muslim Brotherhood, Egypt, maybe older than the UAE position, but they all joined under ideological leadership of the UAE. So for now to go and condemn the Tehran elite regime, it means that they believe that the regime has crossed certain red lines by targeting the UAE. I mean, in all previous clashes with the US and even with the Saudis, UAE was not really targeted. At this time, they were targeted. Major buildings were targeted, including the tower. For them, that's the red line that has been crossed, and that's why they are ready now in the open, though they don't have a major fleet, but to join flag next to a American flag and Israeli flag and other flags. That's a major development by the UAE.
Yeah, it's huge. And what you mentioned, the Iranian regime was targeting civilian infrastructure in the UAE, structure that's not built to withstand
Nope.
missile attacks. It's just, say unbelievable, but it's not unbelievable coming from the regime you both know. Joel, just a few days ago, we were talking about, the reports of these so-called talks, if you will, and possibly involving Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the House. And we spoke about the idea of buying time, that both sides, you've got the Trump administration potentially, you said, came out Monday morning when the markets were opening to try and calm the markets, and ultimately for the regime about survival. Anytime bought time is survival for them, which means they're winning in their view. As more news comes out and this plan, the 15-point plan, and the news coming out from Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy, how do you see this playing out now that we have more information?
Yeah, look, Nagar, there are two different clocks that are driving the calculations here. There's, of course, the clock in Iran, and can they survive another day without getting hit by the Israelis? We just saw overnight a leader of the naval forces that are laying the mines in Iran, in the Gulf, being taken out by the Israelis. And then there's the American clock, which is, as you know better than most, it's a very political clock. It's tied to the electoral cycle. It's tied to, which we have midterms coming up in a little over half a year. It's tied to the patience of the American people on gas prices. And so these are not, this is the clock that the Iranians are trying to turn, the one of the American political clock. And the United States and Israel, we are trying to as well turn the Iranian clock, but it's not as easy when the regime doesn't care about the impact on their own people. But here we do, and our democratic government does, and the president does, and the Congress does. And so I don't think we have a lot of time. And that's my takeaway from this, is that we'll see the outreach like we saw about a diplomatic arrangement, 15-point plan, but I don't think we're going to see a 3-month negotiation. There's not enough time. The clocks don't work in that way. And I think we're going to see, like we saw prior to these strikes, as well as in June, a very limited window for the Iranians in particular to decide whether or not they do want to have a climb down from this war diplomatically versus their response, which was anything but that. And so I think we're going to likely see an escalation in the military action if we continue to see the response from the regime that we are seeing. And that means very short windows in the days ahead.
Not enough time. That's a very significant point that you mentioned, and a short window. So, Dr. Phares, let me ask you, just how short is that window? Could we potentially be seeing boots on the ground in the coming days?
First, we may see boots on the ground, but let me explain in my point of view how those boots will come to the ground. Go back in time for 30 seconds. The regime, the Khomeini's regime, saw in President Trump's administration a force that actually can crush them. That's their calculation. This is not the previous regimes, no. Obama or Biden or even a Clinton administration, so on and so forth, or even George Bush administration. There was no plan to actually change the whole system. But on the other hand, they are convinced that even during a clash with the Trump administration or with the US, there are always ways to deflect attention from the war to negotiations. They are skilled in this. They were surprised and shocked by two things. Number one, how much the Iranian population is opposed to them. They have no chance. If this was a relationship, they have no chance of coming back together. 40 to 50,000 people, even 35,000 people. This regime cannot re-govern those populations. So they know that. What they need right now, they are afraid of the Iranian people because it's simple. If the Iranian people starts to be armed, doesn't matter the chaos or whatever and who's going to win, that alone will signify their end. So what is it that they have been trying to do during the 12-day war and now, as it was mentioned right now, is time, as you have mentioned. They want as much time as I can. As Joel said, they know that we have the midterm elections. They have, I don't want to say it that way, but there are very many sympathizers inside the House and the Congress to stop that war. And some of them are even, next to that regime. They think that regime we can do business with. So what they're trying to do, they have been trying to do during the 12-day war, they resisted, they tried to survive it. And guess what? Their perception tells them that it was President Trump who told Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop it during the last 2 days. He said, Bibi, stop it, because what the Israelis were doing then is what has been done now by both Americans and the Israelis, and targeting those militias, because once the urban militias inside the major cities, not at the periphery, are down, the Iranian people this time is going to go and then is going to execute what the first tweets or the first statements by President Trump: take the institutions, bring them down, keep demonstrating, and know exactly, identify who's attacking you. That's a signal for what a new tribunal, international tribunal, could come later. Now, to hear and very quickly, there will be boots on the ground because that operation is basically destroy all these strategic targets and then seize some of them. And probably every expert now will tell you Kharg could be one, but there are other islands as well. With regard to the Strait of Hormuz, people create legends about it. What is the Strait of Hormuz and how can you stop it? Basically, it's a line in the water. You see the map, the line goes up and then goes down. And on the other side, there is the Iranian coast, which is infested with these missile launches, so on and so forth. So actually speaking, if the U.S. has the international support, and I think the president is trying to kind of dilute this action against him, or you are the reason for why the international commercial lines are going down, is to have an operation against all that coast. So it's not all of Iran's coast, but that part, which tells me that ground forces, limited special forces, Marines, now we understand, may be used in that circumstance.
Wow. Yeah. A few days ago, actually, there was a Marine unit coming from, I think it was near Singapore, that was making its way. So that's one signal that a special forces Marine unit might be deployed. I wanted to end with Lebanon because this really feels like a real world test of everything that we've just discussed. We are now seeing unprecedented steps out of Lebanon, moves against the IRGC, pressure on Hezbollah, and even the withdrawing of the Iranian ambassador. I mean, it's quite incredible. This is a country that for decades was seen as firmly within Iran's sphere of influence. Many people would describe it like the country had been taken hostage by the Iranian regime. And now we're watching this tight grip loosen in real time. Joel, what do you make of that, and what does it say to you?
Well, Nagar, look, I think it's pretty clear that Iran is concerned because they asked for an end to Israeli offensive activities against Hezbollah as part of their counterproposal to President Trump. So they are feeling the heat. This is like the unicorn out there that might very well be seen if Lebanon can free itself of Hezbollah and of IRGC interference. It will have peaceful relations with Israel, and of course, it will have peace within its own borders. The Lebanese people have suffered for too long. They've suffered multiple layers of foreign intervention, including the Israeli strikes that have killed many Lebanese. I do want to say that this is not as if the Lebanese have only been hit by the Hezbollah, but what we're seeing now, and clearly with Israel defending its northern border and taking on Hezbollah and messaging clearly to the Lebanese government that it wants to have a Lebanon that's free of Hezbollah, and the Trump administration is saying the same thing. This is a golden opportunity. This is the chance for Lebanon to be free, for Lebanon to not be terrorized by a hegemonic power in Iran, and to have peace with Israel at its southern border. So I really do hope that we see this move in that direction. And clearly the Iranians and the IRGC are feeling the heat because they want to find a way to stop the fighting that Israel is taking to Hezbollah.
And Dr. Phares, just to end with you, zooming out, does Lebanon represent something bigger?
Of course, it's a microcosm of everything in the region. It has all the communities that exist in Syria and Iraq and Iran and Yemen, so on and so forth. But let's be very clear. 70% of the Lebanese, I'm not talking about the armed people, 70% of the population, as we have seen since the Syrian revolution in 2005, huge demonstration for 1.2 million people on the streets was the reason for why the Assad regime withdrew from Lebanon, thanks to the pressures of France and the United States. So the population, it's majority. I'm not talking about the Shia community because there it's 70% with Hezbollah, and that has the reasons. So the population is ready, has been trying to erupt against Hezbollah. They are not armed, they couldn't do it. The problem is central government. Central government has multiple consensus. And now at this point in time, it has been changing. That's why you see the president of the Republic of Lebanon, though he has not done many, a lot of things in his own history as commander of the army. He could have taken on Hezbollah, but there was a status quo. Hezbollah would assassinate people. And so is the case for the prime minister, commander of the army, etc. So the central government, of course, Hariri at the time. But now things are changing. And it's not because of what's happening in Lebanon. Because of the US and Israel have disarmed half of the Islamic regime in Iran. That's huge for them. Because Israel, with its huge technologies, has destroyed half of the missile fleet of Hezbollah, has actually eliminated more than half of the leaders of Hezbollah. Somebody did the war for the Lebanese, which is Israel. And now the Lebanese have that opportunity, as Joel said, that they need to rise. One signal, which is very important, the new foreign minister of Lebanon, whom I know, but that's not the reason why I'm mentioning him, is the one who actually is delegitimizing Hezbollah. He coordinates with the president of the Republic, but he's the guy. He looks a little bit in his narrative like Bashir Gemayel in the 80s, where he was the one leading the struggle against PLO and then Hezbollah before he was assassinated. So there is something, a new wave coming from Lebanon. We hope that it will end up with peace with Israel, with a triangular initiative, United States, Israel, and Lebanon, and all the way to the peace agreement, to the Abraham Accords, hopefully.
Sounds like we're hopefully coming towards a more peaceful and prosperous and a new Middle East. Thank you so much to both our guests for your time and your expertise and your knowledge. I so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So much focus right now on the war, on strategy, on geopolitics. I want to pause and bring this conversation back to what matters most: the people of Iran. And to something the world must never forget, the January massacre, when tens of thousands of Iranians were killed by the regime. Joining me now is Ali Rezaei Majd. Ali, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. This is an honor for me. Thank you for giving me a chance to sending my voice and my people's voice to the world.
Your voice is so important. Ali, I want to remind our viewers of who you are. In early January, you took to the streets, and after you recorded a video that went viral, seen more than 9 million times, as you openly defied the Islamic Republic regime. I'm just going to play it out now so we can have a listen.
Hello, my name is Ali, and this is my Iranian ID. I'm speaking to you from inside Iran, not as a politician, not as a soldier, but as a young person, a human being, living under fear and oppression every single day. Mr. Trump, people of America, I ask you to look at me if I were your own child. I was born in a land of poetry and history, but today I'm growing up in darkness. Our voices are silenced, our dreams are being destroyed, and our people are suffering, not because we did something wrong, but because we want to live free. We, the people of Iran, are not your enemies. We are just like you, sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, hoping for a better life. Please don't forget us. Stand with the people of Iran. Help us bring back light to our country before it's too late. And if you stand with us now, if you help the people of Iran to win back our freedom, we will never forget it. We will teach our children and their children after them that the people and the government of the United States stood with us when we needed it most. We will always remember your kindness, and we will never stop trying to return that kindness until the end of our days. Thank you.
Alijan, that video is extraordinary. It's raw, it's fearless, it's incredibly powerful. What drove you to record that, knowing very full well that it could cost you your life?
Yeah, thank you so much. Sometimes when you see some prisoners that after a long time in prison tries to risk their life and flee from the prison. That was me. That was me. That was in a prison for 30 years, but without doing any crime in my life. My only crime is just getting birth into a country of tyranny of Islamists, and the, for tasting the um, free life, you can risk everything. And that was nothing. That was nothing. I can risk more. So many people risk their lives and get killed, get shot in the streets of Iran. I just was from the lucky ones who get a chance to flee from Iran. And thousands of people like me just wasn't lucky enough like me, and they just get murdered, killed in the streets of Iran. So when you grow up in a prison, you can risk all you have for just being free, even for just one day.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. And it's something I've heard before, that without freedom, you truly have nothing. Can you take us back? Take us back to that day that you were out on the streets, and what did you witness with your own eyes, Ali?
The reality of Iran that the world needs to know is all the people, all the world must separate people of Iran from the regime inside Iran, because the majority people, the very majority of the people in Iran, they are not supporting government. They are not, they didn't like government. They just getting kidnapped by a dictator, killer machine. That name is the regime Islamic Republic of Iran. And we are just suffering. Imagine, Nagar, if you were, Iran well, you know how it's going in Iran, you know, talking might give them the reason to killing you. Just talking about what you want, about what you need, about what you think is right, but they will kill you. This is my country. This is my people. This is how my people are suffering in my country. And we believe that, we Iranians believe that the governments are not from the people. They are just some maybe mafia, some people who just have guns, have power to ruling the people, to controlling the media. Right now, when we are talking, it's the 30 days that the internet is shut down in Iran. So look, look how they are controlling people. No internet, no media, just a speech. I was watching an interview with Mr. Zari. No, oh, sorry, Mr.
Ugh.
Arakchi, and he was the
Maybe?
journalist asked him, yeah, Mr. Arakchi. The journalist asked him, "Why do you shut down the internet, Mr. Arakchi, in Iran?" He said, "Because because we are the sound of people of Iran." What?
Ridiculous.
Yes, exactly. So this is what happens in my country. It could be
Absolutely
happen
ridiculous.
to any other nation, any other people. So don't take what you see from people of Iran. This is not us. We are fighting. We and people of Israel are in the same side. We are fighting in the streets, and there are fighting on the air with this regime. And we are not the same. We are not the same with the regime. We are completely different. We are in the side of Israel, not the regime inside Iran.
And can you give us an idea when you were out on the streets and you were with your friends? What did you see? Did you see shootings? Describe to
Shooting,
us what you witnessed.
shooting, just in a second. The agents, they have their own major agents. They name as Basij militia. They carry gun. They can kill whoever they want, whoever they think it's a target, it's a danger for the regime, and they are walking in the street without any special suit to for the people to recognize them. Yeah, this is passage, and this is the normal human, so normal people of the city. So they are walking inside the city, and you haven't any idea about who is with government and who is against the government. So when 5 and 6 people gathering together and start protesting and start shouting against the regime, in that time, the first time they start shooting.
Ali John, tell us, you escaped from Iran. What happened that led to your escape, and how did you get out? Tell us your story.
Uh, that was that was my luck because I haven't any plan before getting out from the country. So when the regime agents start searching for me, I change my city and and going to border cities. For 8 days, I was in Iran and I was searching for a secure path to go out from the country. After 8 days, I found some shepherds in the border and some Kulbers, the Kurdish people who trade in the mountains of border. So I found some trusted people and asked them about the ways that I can pass through the mountains. They showed me the way, so I started walking in the mountains. That took time for maybe 2 days, but I was lucky. I passed through the Iranian military bases on the borders. They didn't see me, and even Iraqis, they
Wow.
didn't see me. Yeah, I was so lucky. So I
And you're
passed through
you're
them.
you're more than 6 feet something.
But yeah, that
You're a
was
big guy, so that's pretty amazing.
I, I'm good in hiding. I came from mountains of Luristan. I know how to hide in the mountains. I know how to be alive and safe in mountains. I have a good background from living in the mountains of Luristan, and that helps me a lot. And I came to Iraq, and now it's 2 months that I'm in Iraq. And the first time when I came here, I go to UN and UN Center and ask them about I need some helps, and they didn't care anything about Iranians. This is one of the big problems in Iraq.
Terrible.
I just asked about the
Terrible. I'm
document
so sorry to hear
to
that.
give me permission to get a house, get permission to rent a hotel room, but they didn't even give me a document to get a house for myself with my money. I didn't ask for anything, but they didn't care about Iranian refugees in Iraq. And this is a bad situation for Iranians right now. If they go to Turkey, the government works with Iran and deport the refugees into Iran. And the Iraqi will not take care about them, will not give them any permissions, nothing, nothing. And nobody will not go to Pakistan or Afghanistan. The situation is worse than Iran, and the Tajikistan, terrible.
Yeah.
And the Azerbaijan and Armenia are so secure borders. You cannot pass through the borders of Armenia or Azerbaijan. So imagine how bad is the situation for the people like me who wants to escape from the IRGC forces and agents. You must be so lucky to be uh, to could escape from them and be alive in other countries.
Wow.
So it's 2 months right now that I'm in Iraq. I found some good people here, and I'm
That's
safe right
amazing.
now.
I mean,
Thanks.
not only are you alive, you're here to send your message too.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got this global platform now, with the war going on, this first Nowruz without, these young, many of them young, slain protesters who were killed. This is the first Nowruz
Yes.
without them. And I'm sure many people that you knew as well on a personal level. What is your message to the world right now?
I'm watching the news, I'm watching the media, YouTube right now, and I see so many people, so many channels are trying to um, stop this operation. So many channels and media are trying to say to people, to the world, that no, this is the wrong way. And they're trying to say to Americans, no, this is the second Vietnam. This is like Iraq war. This is like Afghanistan war. But I don't believe that, right now the Iran government shots a missile for 4,000 kilometers to an American airbase. So right now they can shoot missiles even to Europe, to London, to Berlin, Paris, and they're working on nuclear program. So this is a danger for all the world. If they shoot, someone must stop Iran. So this is a big danger for all the world, for peace. And this is the best chance for stopping this terrible regime, and all the world must support the United States to the end of the regime of Iran. So when a government like the governments in Iran didn't even show mercy to its own people, when they killed our own people, more than 40,000 people in 2 days, how how do you can trust to this government? How do you trust to this regime? How do you can let them have nuclear bomb or um, continue the terrorists on the Middle East and around the world? Why you cannot understand? This is a threat against all the world, all the planet. And we, all the people must stop them. It's not just about the people of Iran. They are a threat against all the world. And this is my message to the old. I know that it have cost so many soldiers, American soldiers are in danger right now. So many Israeli soldiers are in danger, and people of Iran right now. We have daily executions in Iran, and the situation is so bad, but all of them is the price of peace and freedom for people of Iran, and we cannot make deal with them. Dealing with them means leaving this cancer to continue its work on this body. And we, all the people of the world, must stop them. You cannot imagine. I just want to say that I grew up in Iran for 30 years. I know the truth. I know what happens in Iran and what's going to happen to the world if they let them to get more power. Just believe that if you don't stop them, they will shoot missile with nuclear bomb to Europe soon. You cannot imagine how evil and cruel they are.
Message, and you know the true face of the Iranian regime. You have the lived experience that a lot of these people in the West really don't have. And this is the
Yes.
first Nowruz, Ali. I wanted to finish off with this. The first Nowruz without these tens of thousands, these slain protesters that you just mentioned. You were there, you were eyewitness to it. You lost friends. Tell me what it feels like to experience this first Nowruz, and your first Nowruz, I believe, out of the country too.
Yeah, I didn't feel nervous like always. I wasn't with my neighbors, my friends, with family, and we are not happy because of what happened to us. We lost so many good people. We lost the best Iranians. We lost the real Persians because they was the bravest people of Iran who came to the street, protesting in Iran is so much different from the West. But in
Yeah.
the West, you came to the street and protesting. Sometimes sometimes it could you could be stopped by police or they will give you alerts about the area. This is the worst kind of protesting that they can imagine. But in Iran, when you came to the streets, you're gonna die. There is some people carrying gun waiting for you and they're just waiting for hear your voice and they will shoot you. Not in the leg, not in the hand, in the heart, in your head. They don't want to waste their bullets. So this Nowruz, I feel different, but also, Nagarjan, um, actually, I'm happy also. I'm sad, I'm happy. Why? Because of the attack against the IRGC. I'm glad. I'm happy because I feel that the blood of my friends didn't waste for nothing. I am watching that the IRGC agents and IRGC forces are getting shot, missiles, like how they act with his own people, with my friends, and that makes me happy actually. The death of supreme leader, the death of top rated chiefs and that's really made me happy because I feel that my friend didn't die for nothing. The world heard us and we are so close. I feel we are so close to our freedom after 50 years living in the nightmare. We are waking up after 50 years, and it's not just about me. I think the real Persians, the real Iranians, all of them. I know we have so many reasons to be sad because we lost so many good, the best of us are right now dead. We are not alive, the best of us, but we are getting our freedom back again, and that's made me happy. Yeah, I'm far from home. I have no safety. Maybe after this interview, they have so many agents around me, surrounding me. They even attacking my page. They're trying to disconnect me with the world. But right now, with all that happens, I'm happy because the world show that they hear us. They hear us and they are acting against this evil regime.
And
We are
may
paying
you
the
stay
price.
happy, Ali John, and I pray for your safety.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was super lucky.
Of course, we want to see you. Yeah, no, and I hope that you continue to be, because I heard you in another interview describe the uprisings as the regime, like the call of, you called it like Call of Duty, that it was just shooting, 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 shooting.
I uploaded that video and that make a situation for me to traveling the cities and I see all the cities in Iran and I see the situation in different cities. That was like a video game. They just shooting so easy to the people. They didn't look like Iranians. You cannot find the Iranian who killed another Iranian like that. They are not from us. I don't know who they are. They're just some agents getting money paid for killing my people. This is what's happening in my country.
Well, thank you so much again, Ali, for not only making the time, but for being you. You are also one of the best and the bravest and the brightest for the people of Iran, and we're so fortunate to have you, and grateful, and for you to continue your campaign.
No, thank you. I appreciate. But as I said, the best and the courage and the bravest are now dead. And I don't deserve to be called like that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a chance to
Well,
be the voice of people of Iran. And I hope to this voice be heard by the people. And be effective on them. My English is not good. I know so many things, so many reasons, but this is
It's
truth.
excellent. It's excellent.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm trying to say the truth about what's happening in my country. Maybe not with good edits. Maybe I'm not like celebrities in the West, like the singers, the actors, but I'm a normal human. I'm a simple man. I'm just trying to say and tell the truth. And I hope that my voice be heard in the world. And the world knows that the IRGC is evil. All the people must stop them. It's not just about us. They are a threat to all the people. Yeah. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And you are carrying on the legacy of those who have been killed, and that takes courage and bravery. So thank you so much again, Ali, for joining us today. If you like this episode, you can hit the like button. You can leave us a comment, let us know what you think and what you'd like to see for future episodes. You can also join our weekly briefing newsletter at iranintl.com/newsletter. And you can also check out our dedicated English website at iranintl.com/en.